The Power of Four is the first book in the Legacy of the Goddess series. It is a tale of fantasy, magic, and adventure, set in ancient Egypt in the mythical village of Neten on the banks of the great sacred river. Chapter 14. The Westerly Winds. They reached Tunga at dusk in the west. It had taken them 2 days. They had taken a caravan fleet to travel from Ur to Ras. By noon, they had only reached half the distance. "It gets easier from now on," said the owner of the fleet. With dusk approaching, they finally reached Tunga, the land on the western side of their great river. The city of Tunga was brightly lit. People looked wealthy and well-fed, wore modern clothes. They appeared friendly, and the houses seemed larger than the ones they had seen. Ras was still ahead, but they had to rest. The fleet had stopped at a tea shop in Tunga for refreshment. The shop sold tea and sweet cakes. As Ezra sipped his tea and dipped his cake in it, he missed his mother terribly. He missed the smell of their bakery and the sweet cakes that she baked. The shopkeeper kept scolding someone who was in the kitchen for keeping the customers waiting. "Your head is always in the clouds," he said. "When will you learn to do things properly?" And before he could say another word, Ezra heard earthenware drop and cracked loudly. He went up to the kitchen to see what the commotion was all about. He saw a boy around his age smiling at him. There was mischief written all over his face. He wore gold rings in both ears. His wild curly hair fell on his face. He raised his hand in greeting, his eyes twinkling. "I'm Maruth. And you are? Going west? Which place do you want to visit, Ras or Zeb? Both are in the west. Now if you go to the east," he pointed to the right. Ezra could not get a word in, as Maruth spoke breathlessly. "Hey, hold on. I'm Ezra. I'm going in the direction of Ras. These are my fellow travelers, Tani, Bodhi, and Naved," said Ezra. Maruth looked at Tani and started to say something but stopped. Ezra looked at him and knew the feeling. Tani had that effect on people. She did not try to impress. She was dressed in the most ordinary clothes, but when people looked at her, they were awestruck. "Ras, then. You will need 2 things," said the boy, and went off. He came back with a leather bag. "This is a crystal which shows you the direction you are in, and this is for me," taking a coin which he placed in the bag. It looked very interesting, but the boy had slipped it in his pocket. "I will give it to you," pointing to the lot, "for a price." Ezra shook his head. "I don't have much money." He started to walk away. "Hey, I'll give it to you if you take me with you." He picked up his bag and started following him out of the shop. Ezra looked at him surprised. "I didn't say yes. You haven't told your father that you're leaving." "And where are your belongings?" asked a surprised Ezra. "You didn't say no, and he's not my father. And I don't have any belongings," said Maruth. Ezra was not sure whether he could take someone like him along. But he had no choice. He had little time. He needed to know the directions, and the names of the places got jumbled in his head. The boy knew more than he did. "Let's go then," said Ezra. "Be careful, dear one. There are enemies about. It is quite a crowd of people you have collected. Remember, more the people, the more visible you are. Take care and remain safe," cautioned the voice of the guardian. Ezra decided it was better if they split up and got more work done, then spent time doing everything together. On the way to Ras, Ezra told Maruth that he was looking for incense that was used for only rituals, that it had to be made of certain gums and raisins found in trees grown in that region. These were specified in the Book of Rituals. Maruth said that incenses were made in Ras, since it had the largest number of temples in the western region. There is one place that makes incense used solely for rituals. They went to the biggest temple in Ras. The place was massive. It had ornate columns, huge stone statues, and each of the major gods that ruled the earthly plane was placed in a separate temple. "Let's ask someone," said Maruth. He found that most of the priests were busy. None had the time to talk to them. They left the temple and entered a large shop selling incense. There was a scent of heavy fragrance in the air. They heard someone calling them. "Is that man calling us? Maybe he wants to tell us something," said Maruth. "Who?" asked Ezra. "The man there," pointed Maruth. The man looked familiar. Where had Ezra seen him before? He could not remember. The man reached for the wares and handed a sistrum to Ezra. "Is this what you are looking for?" he said, looking into Ezra's eyes. "I know you. We have met before. I have made deliveries from our bakery to your house," said Ezra. "Yes, indeed, you remember well. Be quick now. There is much work to do." So saying, he turned and walked away. Ezra thought it was strange that the man knew what they were looking for and that they were in a hurry. He looked at the sistrum and thought it would be a good addition to his collection of ritual implements. They asked for incense and were shown a large collection. Ezra looked at all the incense that had exotic ingredients, including frankincense and myrrh. He could not make up his mind. The shopkeeper showed him an incense holder to burn the incense. It was an unusual looking holder, made of stone. It was polished to reflect light. The holder had the markings that he was looking for. He paid for the sistrum, the incense, and the holder, and they came out of the shop. On the way back, Ezra asked Maruth about his parents. Maruth said he did not know his parents. He was brought up by a foster father who was kind to him and taught him several skills. As he grew up, he helped in the shop where he got food and shelter. Maruth said that he wanted to move on, that he had been in the same place since childhood, and it was time he headed out into the world. He said the only thing which he was really good at was telling the direction of wind. He said that he had learned that from his foster father from a young age. He said he came away from the shop because he was getting scolded too often and he was getting tired of breaking the earthenware. Ezra told Maruth about his missing father. He told Maruth how he had to collect incense, a lamp, salt, soil, and water from the 4 directions. "Now that I have collected my ritual tools, all that is required is the salt and sacred soil from the north," said Ezra. Back home in Neten, the magician told Shila triumphantly, "I helped your friend Ezra get his ritual musical instrument. I don't think the high priestess had told him to get one. He had a friend with him." Shila was surprised. Why would he help Ezra, whose father he had imprisoned? Her father smirked. "I know he can never get the ceremony performed here." Shila said under her breath, "Maybe he will." "What is that you say?" "There is no one who can help him," smiled the magician. The magician felt happy when others around him were miserable. To him, it meant he had done the right thing. To deny people what they wanted the most gave him an indescribable feeling of power and happiness. He felt that the universe had given him the role of a teacher who had to teach people the lessons of life. Otherwise, they would fail in learning their lessons that life had to teach them. He had a position of power in the temple governance that others could only dream of. His only daughter had powers which he had never fathomed. Even he was afraid of them. He took solace in the fact that she was unaware of her powers. That is how he controlled her. When the stars were foretelling his success and abundance, Who was he to question the divine blessings that were bestowed on him? The most powerful yet foolish magician of the land was crushed under his foot, and now all he had to do was wait and watch. Thank you for listening. This was a chapter from The Legacy of the Goddess, Power of Four. Tune in every Friday for a new chapter. You can also buy the whole book right now. Visit legacyofthegoddess.gumroad.com to buy The Power of Four in both written and audio format, as well as a special discounted bundle.